Hello again everyone, this is Zombie Kids Rule and I'm back with part 7 of the tutorial series for how I recreated the D&D style Eye of the Beholder game character generation process. I can actually talk a little bit louder, so even though Mrs. Zombie is sleeping, I actually have found a little bit space a little bit farther away, so I can speak a little bit louder, so hopefully you're able to hear me. So again, part 7, we are up to the common event for determining hit points, so hit point determination, and then we'll see how long this goes and what other common events we can move forward with. I highly recommend that you watch the previous videos. Even if you're just trying to get ideas, even if you're just trying to see how certain things were done, you'll find that the concepts, the logic, the reasoning of how some of these events are constructed is repeated. And so if I explain it in one of the earlier parts, I am trying not to go in as much detail in subsequent parts. So, it would be a good idea to watch the two videos that they're very short. They show the actual functionality. So the first video shows the Eye of the Beholder game itself, the original game from like 1990 or 1991, and then my recreation. Then there's a shorter video that just highlights a couple things that I had forgotten or I didn't notice, quite frankly, and I had to add them. And then the first 6 parts go from setting up this initial kind of screen to setting up the selectable windows, to then selecting race and gender, and then class, and then alignment, and then the last video, part 6, did the attribute rolls, so rolling dice determination for the attributes, which also determined the armor class. And so now we're up to hit point determination, and then again we'll see if we can move forward a little bit. All right? Okay, so jumping right in, we are in our common events here. So as I referenced, when we were in the bio screen event, right, we went from alignment to bio screen, and very early in the bio screen it called the common event dice rolls, which covered in the last part 6, and now after it ran and triggered and did that, it also runs the common event for HP determination, hit point determination, before it then finishes the event that we already talked about. So hit point determination, just going to go right down through here. So randomly rolls HP, hit points, based on class or classes, right, if it's a multi-class character, and the Constitution modifier, and determines character levels based on classes. So this is also the event that determines if it's a single class character, how many levels they're going to have to start with. Eye of the Beholder basically goes by, it gives characters 5,000 XP to begin with, and then if it's a single class character, you look at the experience charts and say, hey, what level is that? Most single class characters start at level 3 in Eye of the Beholder. Thieves actually start at level 4, and then for multi-class characters, you have to take that 5,000 XP, divide it by the number of classes, like divide it by 2 if it's a multi-class character, or divide it by 3 if it's a triple class character, and then look at the XP charts to see, okay, what level is that for each class. So that is also determined in this common event. So first thing, setting a variable for Constitution modifier to 0. Okay, so the con modifier is 0. Conditional branches for each CC box, right? So remember, in all of our previous things, there's going to be part of the event that is if you're dealing with the CC box 1, that's for the first character that you create, the first character portrait, then CC box 2, CC box 3, CC box 4. So you're going to have conditional branches for each to calculate hit point bonus or penalty based on the Constitution value. Roll HP, so again, HP is randomly rolled based on the hit dice given to each class, following the old D&D rules that this is based on, and set character level based on XP divided by total classes, right, for multi-class characters. So now we're here at our first party member, CC Box 1, right? So again, just like when we were dealing with the races and the classes and the alignments, all of this is going to be, if the player clicks on the first character box, the first portrait box, you can see it's pretty long. There's a lot. Okay, there's a lot to it, and then still going. There's a lot to it. You get all the way down. Goodness gracious, all the way down here. Then you can essentially copy and paste, and then you have to do the same thing for CC Box 2, CC Box 3, and CC Box 4. Okay, but it's a pretty big event. Okay, so first thing, hit point adjustment based on Constitution. So this is just the values. So if you have a 19 Constitution, it's +5, 18 +4, 17 +3, 16 +2, 15 +1. 7 to 14 there's no modifier. If you have a 4 to 6, it's a -1, and if you have a 3, it's -2, and you won't have anything below a 3 because you're keeping at least 3 dice rolls, right? So you're going to have a minimum of a 3. So conditional branches to set the modifier to the applicable variable for the applicable CC box. Again, I worded it this way so I can just copy and paste without changing the comment, right, to CC1, CC2, CC3. All right, so now this is setting the Constitution modifier for CC1, right, because we're in CC1. There are a couple other ways to do this that I experimented with. I got suggestions from the forum, and I think I tested them both, and I remember they worked, but I didn't want to, because I was already done with this, I didn't want to update these. So what I will do is later on, when I'm all done, these tutorials, then I will circle back and I will show the alternate ways to do this same thing, okay, without as many conditional branches, okay? All right, but right now I'm just going to show you the way I initially built it. So if CC1 Constitution, right? Remember the attributes were set in the dice roll common event. If CC1 Constitution is 19, because it could be if there's a racial bonus, then set the variable con modifier to 5. Okay, it's not character specific, so it's not CC1 con modifier, CC2 con modifier. We're using the same variable con modifier in this event because it's fine. We're going to use that modifier for something, and then so right now we don't have to split it up. So CC1 con is 19. You're going to set the con modifier variable to 5. If it's an 18, set it to 4. If it's a 17, set it to 3. If it's a 16, set it to 2. If it's a 15, set it to 1. And then these last two, if the Constitution attribute, right, if the variable is less than 15, but, because there's a nested conditional branch, if the CC1 Constitution modifier is greater than or equal to 7, so basically this is saying if it's 7 to 14, then the con modifier is going to be 0. And then this one is going to be if the CC1 Constitution is less than 7, but it's also less than 4, so that basically means it's 4 to 6, right? Because this is less than 7, and this is less than 4, so it's going to be 4 to 6. Then the set the Constitution modifier to -2. Else, so this is your first else branch, meaning that it's I'm sorry, I explained that wrong. If it's less than 7 and it's less than 4, which means that if both of these are true, it's a 3. Then you're going to set it to -2. Else, meaning that it's these are both not true, right, then this will be -1. Okay, so the way this works is, right, you've got a constitution value, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15. If it's 14 to 7, it's going to trigger this one. All right, so now we've triggered something from 7 to 19, right? The only thing left is 6 to 3. So if a CC1 constitution is less than 7, well, if it's a 6, 5, 4, or 3, that is going to be true. So then it checks the next conditional branch. If CC1 constitution is less than 4, meaning it's a 3, make it a -2. Otherwise, right, it's not a 3, which means it's a 4, 5, or 6, right? That's when this else branch gets triggered. Then it's a -1. Okay, that may seem a little confusing, and again, there are a couple different ways to do this that are shorter and might be easier to understand when you look at it. But again, I will highlight those in another video. All right, so we set the constitution modifier. So now, determine HP based on class. Now this is why these are so long, because the different classes have different hit dice. And when you get to multi-classes, you've got to accommodate for multiple classes with multiple hit dice. So this took quite a bit, and it was, I made a bunch of mistakes, and I had to fix a bunch of them. So first, we're just going to go right down through the classes. If fighter is on, so if you're making a fighter, so if conditional branch, fighter is on. Set level based on 5,000 XP. So you take your variable for CC1 level, and it equals 3. And this is just experience tables in the Eye of the Beholder player manual. Okay, so you can either look up the Eye of the Beholder player manual, or you can trust me. So it's being set to level 3. Level 1 HP roll plus con modifier. So it's going to go through for each class. It's going to go through. Since there's 3 levels, it's gonna calculate the dice roll for hit points for the first level, the second level, and then the third level. All right, so that's what this is doing. So level 1 HP roll plus con modifier. So a variable HP die 1. So this is the first dice roll, and for fighters, it's set to random 1 to 10, and then the same variable 810 HP die 1. Plus the value of the constitution modifier. Okay? But wait, it can't be that simple, right? Because what if your constitution modifier is a negative? And let's just say, for sake of argument, that this rolls a 1, right? Well, we don't want you to have negative hit points, right? So we want you to at least have 1 hit point per level. So the next thing it has to do is it says, okay, I set my level, I rolled my first hit point dice, 1 to 10, I added my constitution modifier. Well, if it's a negative number, it's going to lower it, right, and not increase it. So now we have to adjust for negative hit point result based on low dice roll and con penalty, constitution penalty. So it's going to check, and it's going to say if HP die 1 is less than or equal to 0, right? So it's not a 1, it's actually 0 or less. Then you're gonna manually set HP die 1 to 1, to the lowest it can be. Okay? And that's the first dice roll. So then you repeat it for the second dice roll. Level 2 HP roll plus con modifier. So this changes to HP 2, right? Die 2. So the variable changes, still random 1 to 10. Then you take that same variable, HT die 2, add the constitution modifier, so the same variable, right? You're adding the same variable. And then you got to adjust for if it's a negative. So if HP die 2 is less than or equal to 0, then set that variable to 1. And then you do the same thing for the third, right? Level 3 HP roll plus con modifier. Different variable, HP die 3, random 1 to 10, add to HP die 3, the variable con modifier, constitution modifier, and then adjust if it's a negative. If HP die 3 is less than or equal to 0, then manually set the variable to 1. Okay? So that takes care of our 3 dice rolls of die 10 and the constitution modifier. So what does it do at the end? You have to total the HP. So the variable HP die total, that's a different variable, is going to be set to the value of variable 810 plus 811 plus 812, and those were your dice rolls, right? So 810, 811, 812, and the con modifier has already been taken into consideration. So you add those 3 together, and that is the value of your HP die total, right? And then you're going to take that, because you're going to reuse this variable, right? You're going to reuse this variable. So you're going to take another variable, CC1 HP, right? So the first character 1 HP, is set to the HP die total, which is this variable. Okay, so this variable is you add up the dice, and then that total gets set to the unique variable for character 1, CC1 HP. That is the basic concept of how you're going to do each class. And then it only gets a little bit tricky when you have to do multiple classes. Okay? All right, so let's just, again, I'm going to go through all of these to highlight, because you can easily make mistakes here. And also, so you don't have to go, if you wanted to recreate this, you wouldn't have to look up the manual. You can just go exactly based off what I did. So we finished fighter. So now we have a new conditional branch. If paladin is on, right? If paladin is on, you're creating a paladin. So same thing here. You have the, this happens to be the same. Its CC1 level is 3, so this could still be copied and pasted from the fighter. This is the same, right? Because you're still dealing with HP die 1. Paladins and fighters both get die 10, right? So this doesn't have to change. This doesn't have to change. This doesn't have to change because it's the same, right? None of this changes because you're still dealing with the first character, and you're still dealing with the same number of dice, and you're dealing with the same die 10. So this doesn't change, this doesn't change, the third dice roll doesn't change, the third accounting for a 1 doesn't change. This shouldn't change because it's the same variables you're adding up, 810, 811, 812. You're still using the same variable HT die total, and you're still using the same variable here. CC1 HP is set to HP die total. So when you did Paladin, the only thing that changed for Paladin was this, the conditional branch switch, and then everything else was the same. So Fighter and Paladin was a really easy copy and paste. Okay, Ranger's going to be the same way, because Rangers also have a die 10. So you can copy and paste it and change the conditional branch to if Ranger switches on. This stays the same. This stays the same. It's still a die 10. This stays the same. All of this is the same. All of this is the same. All of this is the same. So Fighter, you make Fighter, and you can do Paladin and Ranger really fast just by copying, pasting, and changing the conditional switch, right? Okay, so Fighter, Paladin, Ranger, really easy. Cleric, not a lot changes, because what you're going to find is for these single class characters, you're just basically changing the hit dice. Okay, so Cleric, if Cleric is on, the switch Cleric is on, this stays the same because you're still dividing by 5,000. It still happens to be level 3. This stays the same, except you're changing the random 1 to 10 to 1 to 8, because in these old rules, the clerics had a die 8 for hit dice. Constitution modifier stays the same. The check on the low dice check, right? If it's less than 0, that stays the same. So for the second hit dice, you just have to remember to change this to a die 8, 1 to 8. All this stays the same. For the third one, change this to a die 8, random 1 to 8. All this stays the same. You're still adding up the same 3 variables. That you're still using the same variable here. So that's the only thing that changes is the hit dice, right? So random, instead of 1 to 10, it's 1 to 8. Mage class, it's going to be exactly the same, except their hit dice is even smaller. So if mage switches on, this is the same. Change, all of this stays the same, except you're going to change the random from 1 to 8 for cleric, or 1 to 10 for the fighter classes, to 1 to 4. Okay, because mages get 1 die 4. This stays the same. This all stays the same, except changing this to 1 to 4. All this stays the same, except changing this to 1 to 4. All of this stays the same, because you're still adding up the same variables to get your total. Okay, now thief is very, very similar, except thieves are actually starting at level 4. So you have to add a dice roll conditional branch. So if thief switches on, this common is the same, but then the level that you're assigning is actually a 4. So you got to change from this. If you copied and pasted, you have to change it from a 3 to a 4. Now, this stays the same, except thieves get a die 6 roll for each hit dice. So it's, depending on where you copied and pasted from, it's either you're changing 1 die 10 to 1 die 6, or 1 die 8 to 1 die 6, or 1 die 4 to 1 die 6, whatever. However, wherever you copied and pasted from. The rest of this is the same. It gets repeated for the second hit dice, just update it random number 1 to 6. Gets repeated for the third hit dice, update it to 1 to 6. Then you have to copy and paste one of these so that you can have the fourth hit dice. So level 4 HP roll plus Constitution modifier, you have to have a new variable here, HP die 4, set it to 1 to 6, and then HP die 4 plus the variable for the Constitution modifier. Then you have to have this new conditional branch if HP die 4 is less than or equal to 0, and then make sure you're changing this variable, then HP die 4 is set to 1. Right? This is where you can start to forget to update certain variables, and then you'll have a mistake. So then down here, we have to change this just a tiny bit, because instead of adding 3 variables to the HP die total, we're just adding a fourth. So add 810, 811, 812, just like we did for all the other classes, but then we're going to add variable 814 as well. So now you're adding 4 hit dice to get your total, and then this stayed the same as it was in the previous classes. Okay? So not terribly difficult. It's just a lot of copying and pasting and changing the variable values and some switches, right? Okay, now this is the first multi-class one. So this one does get this is different, right? So this is different, but once we do it once, we follow the same logic for all of the other multi-class characters. So if fighter cleric is on, right? And I should go back. I guess I shouldn't have to point this out, but you know that all of these blocks are they start at the very farthest left side, right? So all of these conditional branches are they're not nested, right? The if fighter, if paladin, if ranger, if cleric, they're all conditional branches that are all the way over to the left-hand side, right? They're not nested underneath each other, right? Like this is nested under this, and you can tell that because when you're here and you scroll up, it's underneath it, right? So anyway, and when you click here, you can see that it's contained within this. So this is a nested conditional branch of this one. Okay, so I probably don't need to point that out, but I'm just going to. All of your conditional branches for your classes start all the way to the left, okay, in this event. All right, now, if fighter cleric class, if fighter cleric switches on, here's my comment about dividing by XP, dividing 5,000 XP by the number of classes. Now we have two new variables, right? So CC1 MC multiclass level 1 and CC1 multiclass level 2. And these are unique to CC1. And it just so happens that for fighter clerics, when you divide out the 5,000 XP, they're a second level fighter and a second level cleric. That's just the way it works out. Okay? So now we have to do our first hit point roll plus constitution modifier. Now, you're going to have to trust me on this. There's some math. So the first one, we have a variable MC die 1 and MC die 2. These are not unique to CC1, CC2, CC3 because we're going to reuse these. It's perfectly fine. So multi-class die 1 set to random 1 to 10 because it's a fighter. And then for MC die 2, set it to 1 to 8 because it's a cleric. Okay? Just like no different than what we did before, but we're doing two classes. So then we have a MC die total, right? So a different variable, 831. And what you're going to do, now this is where your math comes in, you're going to add up 828, which is MC die 1, and you're going to add it to 829, which is MC die 2, so 1 to 10 plus 1 die 8. And then you're going to divide it by 2, right? Because there's two classes. So you take the total hit points that they got, divide it by 2. So if this was a 5 and this was a 3, right, you're going to have a total of 8. Divided by 2, it's going to be 4. Okay? And you have to make sure that you do your math properly, PEMDAS, right? And so we're going to do parentheses. So PEMDAS is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Because the parentheses are first, this addition happens first. And then you divide it by 2. Okay, so if you're not familiar with PEMDAS as an acronym, you can search for it on the internet, but it's how you do math equations. All right, math and I are not always friends, but I did test this, and I know it works. I'm doing it correctly. So just make sure that you are paying attention to your parentheses, right? Because there are parentheses for the variable number, right? Parentheses for the variable number, and then there's parentheses to put the variable addition inside parentheses. So just be careful. Make sure you have all your parentheses. So then we take HP die 1 is equal to the MC die total, right? So this is no different than it was before, HP die 1. And then HP die 1 for the variable, you're adding the variable for constitution modifier to it. And that gives us, finally, our HP die 1 for this particular, if we're making a fighter cleric. Okay? So we had to do all of that to get the HP die 1 total. Then you have to do that check again. Make sure it's not 0 or less. And if it is, if HP die 1 is less than or equal to 0, manually set the variable to 1. Okay, now, there's this little tiny frame weight here, right? Just because we're reusing variables, and again, I want to make sure that the event isn't running so fast that maybe it reuses a previous value, right, and skips over the generation of a new value. So just a tiny little weight here, weight of 2 frames. It's going to repeat it for the second level, right? Because this one has 2 levels. So it does this. It does it all over again, right? Yeah, what's different? Oh, up here we had the setting the levels, right? And then this down here is basically a copy and paste of this, right? That's what this is. Okay, so repeated. MC die 1 is because we're reusing these variables, right? We're reusing the same variables. So MC die 1 is 1 to 10. So this stays the same. This stays the same. This stays the same because you're still adding those two together and dividing it by 2. This stays the same. This stays the same, right, I'm sorry. These two change, right? So these two stay exactly the same. This stays exactly the same. These two you have to update to the HP die 2. HP die 2, right? Because this was die 1, this is die 2. But you're still setting it to MC die total, and you're still adding the con modifier variable. And then down here, you have to update this conditional branch to HP die 2 is less than or equal to 0. Then you're manually updating HP die 2 to 1. Okay? And then you have to get the total altogether. So you take that variable HP die total, and now you add the HP die 1, which is 810, and HP die 2, which is 811. So you add those two together. So 810 plus 811, and that's what's being set to the that's what's being set to the die total. And then you do your CC1 HP is equal to HP die total. Okay? All right, now that is a multi-class character. The rest of these are going to be similar in concept. It's just that you sometimes have to add an additional dice roll, or you have to add an additional level, right? That sort of thing. And sometimes, like with when it comes to some classes, they might be level 1, and level 2. So you have to do a little bit of different math. Okay, so let's look at Fighter Mage. If Fighter Mage switches on, then this stays the same. It just so happens that these stay the same because they're going to be a level 2 fighter, or level 2 mage. This happened to stay the same if you copied and pasted from the fighter cleric, because you're still a fighter, right? So you still have that die 1 to 10. Then this would change to go to 1 to 4, right, for the mage. This would stay the same because you're still doing the same math. You're adding those two variables and dividing by 2. Then this would stay the same, and this would stay the same. So nothing's changing there. Then you still have this check, so this stays the same because you're still dealing with HP die 1, right? And then down here, you repeat it for dice 2. So again, now this is where you have to decide what's going to work best for you. If you copied and pasted fighter cleric, then you have to make the same changes, right? In both sections. Like if you made the change up here to 1 to 4, you'd have to make the same change down here. Or if you copied and pasted fighter cleric, and then you deleted this part and then copied and pasted from up here, you could do that, right? Whatever's going to not confuse you, okay? It might be easier just to copy and paste, like say fighter cleric, and use it for fighter mage, and then just manually change each section as you need it. It's entirely up to you. So the differences are you have 1 to 4 again, right? This stays the same. Now this, remember, these change because now you're in HP die 2 instead of die 1, HP die 2 instead of HP die 1. So, but these values over here stay the same. This changes. HP die 2 is less than or equal to 0. HP die 2 is set to 1, right? And then this stays the same, and then this stays the same. Okay, so when you're copying, pasting, you don't have to change these. All right, Fighter Thief. This is going to be a little different because Fighter Thief switches on. You notice that these variables, you're reusing these variables, you're using the same ones, but now it's a 2nd level fighter, 3rd level thief. Okay, so if you've copied and pasted, then these two variables stay the same. 1 to 10 can stay the same from before because you're still dealing with a fighter. For thief, you got to make sure it's 1 to 6. This stays the same because you're still adding up the same two variables. This stays the same, and this stays the same. Okay, so you don't have to make any changes there. This stays the same. All right, now you've copied and pasted, so now you're updating this one. You would have to just update this to 1 to 6, right? Because again, if you copied and pasted from the previous multi-class, this would stay the same. You would have to update these to HP die 2, HP die 2, but these stay the same. This gets changed, HP die 2, HP die 2, that gets updated. And then you would have to add, so maybe copy and paste this to create a third HP die roll, right? But it's thief only. And I made a decision, because I had no idea how Eye of the Beholder did it, and I didn't brush up on the D&D rules again from way back when. So I just made a decision that I would divide the thief class by 2, right? But I wasn't going to apply the Constitution modifier until you get the, in this case, the second class, like fighter, goes to level 3. So basically, let's say, as a practical example, you're a second level fighter and you're a second level thief, for instance. Let's say that. You level up in thief. Well, you're going to get some hit points because you'll roll your thief hit point dice and divide it by 2. Don't get your Constitution modifier. Then, when your fighter goes to level 3, you roll your 1 die 10, divide it by 2, right? Because you have to make sure that you're not getting more hit points than you should. But then you get to add your Constitution modifier, right? So once both classes or all 3 classes get equal to the level, right? Like level 3, that's when you get to apply your Constitution modifier. That was just the way I decided to do it. I wouldn't necessarily do it that way in my game, but that's what I did. So for this purposes, so you had to add this section, then you're still using MC die 1, right? But that's it, because you're only rolling 1 dice. For a thief, it's 1 to 6, so it's no different than this right here, right? But you're using MC die 1. You take MC die 1, divide it by 2, right? So divide by 2. And then you have to have a new variable, HP die 3, is being set to MC die 1. So the result of this is being set to your hit point die 3. You still have to check to make sure it's not 0 or below. So if HP die 3 is less than or equal to 0, manually set that to a 1. So then with this addition, right, you have to change this a little bit from previous copies and pastes, because you have to make sure you're adding all 3 variables, right? The 3 hit dice. So this is more like the fighter or the paladin or ranger, because remember there was 3 hit point dice to add together. So you add the 3 together, and then set the HP dice total to your CC1 HP variable. Okay. All right. So then we get to our first third class, third class character. Yeah, 3 classes, right? Triple class character. So now you're going to have, if fighter cleric mage switches on, you're going to have 3 variables, CC1 MC level 1, level 2, level 3, so 3 different variables. And it just so happens that when you divide up their XP, this is a first level fighter, second level cleric, first level mage. Okay, so now we got to make sure we accommodate for that those differences. So when we roll our first hit point dice, right? When we roll the first one, all of them have 1 level, right? So we're going to say, okay, MC die 1 is your fighter's hit dice, 1 to 10. MC die 2, right? Your multi-class die 2 is your cleric hit dice, 1 to 8. MC die 3, right, is your mage hit dice, 1 to 4. Okay, so first level fighter, first level cleric, first level mage. Your MC die total is, you add those 3 up, and then you divide it by 3. So here we go. You're adding variable 828, 829, 830. That's in parentheses, so this addition is happening first. Then you're dividing by 3 instead of 2. Okay, not too hard. This stays the same. HP die 1 is set to MC die total, and then HP die 1, you're adding the constitution modifier variable. And then you're checking to make sure it's not it's not equal to or less than 0. If it is, you're going to set it to 1. Okay, now for the first hit point dice, there were 3 classes. You notice the second hit point dice is only going to have 1 class. That's cleric, right? Because there's only 1 level 2. So you have to make a little bit of an adjustment here. So level 2 HP roll, cleric only, no constitution modifier. So MC die 1 is the cleric's die 8, 1 to 8. You're going to then take that variable, divide it by 3. Okay, divide it by 3. And then you're going to take the HP die 2 variable and make it equal to MC die 1. Okay? So this is the value of your second hit dice, only rolling as a cleric and still dividing by 3. Then you have to have your check. If it's less than or equal to 0, you got to set it to a 1 manually. And then down here, you only have 2 hit dice, right? So you add, that's all you're adding together. So basically HP die 1, HP die 2, and the total of that is the HP die total, and then you're setting that die total to the CC 1 HP. Okay? Now, Fighter Mage Thief is very similar to the Fighter Cleric Mage. Yeah, Fighter Cleric Mage, but the levels are moved around a little bit. So it just so happens that when you look at the XP tables, this happens to be a first level fighter, first level mage, second level thief. Okay, so these variables are the same. You're just changing them. If you copied and pasted from the class above, you got to make sure you change, right? Then this is staying the same, except you've got to make sure that you adjust these, right? So fighter, random 1 to 10, mage, random 1 to 4, thief, random 1 to 6. Okay, then this stays the same. You have to add 3 variables and divide it by 3. And then this stays the same, that you copied and pasted from the previous class. This stays the same. All right. Then down here, again, if you copied and pasted from above, you just have to change a few things. So it's random 1 to 6 because you're dealing with a thief. You're still dividing it by 3, and you're still setting HP die 2 to the MC die 1. And then this stays the same if you copied and pasted. This stays the same because you're still adding those 2 hit dice together, and you're still setting that to CC 1 HP. So not too bad, not a lot of changes. All right, now we're getting close to the end for CC 1. So remember, this is all still in CC 1 box. Once we get to the end of the classes, you just have to copy and paste the entire thing and then make all the same changes. So it is a lot of making little changes, and you got to make sure you don't mess up. All right, so if Cleric Ranger switches on, it just so happens that it's level 2 and 2. So this is really very similar to, like, say, a fighter cleric or something like that. Your 2 hit dice, right, or MC die 1, MC die 2 is 1 to 8 for cleric, 1 to 10 for ranger. You're still adding up 2, right, and you're still dividing by 2. So we did that in the previous double class characters. And then this is still the same, and this is still the same, and this is still the same, right? You still got to check and see if it's 0 or 1. And then down here, it's the same changes that you would have made up here. You're going to have 1 die 8 for the cleric, 1 die 10 for the ranger. You're still adding the 2 variables together and dividing by 2. And then you're just making sure this changes to HP die 2, HP die 2. These stay the same. This HP die 2 less than or equal to 0, HP die 2 equals to 1, right? So it all depends on where you copied and pasted from to see what you have to change. And then your total is you're just adding those two variables, right? The two hit points, the two HP die 1 and HP die 2, adding it to get the HP die total. And then you're setting the HP die total to the CC1 HP. And Cleric Mage. So this would be very similar to Cleric Ranger, right? So if you copied and pasted, you would just change this to Cleric Mage switch. These would stay the same because it's level 2 and 2. You would just make sure that you update your ranges. So for Cleric, it's 1 to 8. For Mage, it's 1 to 4. This wouldn't change at all because you're adding these two variables together and dividing by 2. Right? That wouldn't change at all. This would stay the same. This would stay the same. This would stay the same. Down here, again, if you're copying, pasting from the previous multi-class, you just make sure your ranges change, 1 to 8, 1 to 4. This would stay the same. This would, if you copied and pasted from above, you wouldn't have to change these because they would already be HP die 2. This wouldn't change because it would already be HP die 2, right? HP die 2. This would be the same, and then this would be the same, okay? Cleric Thief is if you copy and paste from the one immediately above, it does have to change a tiny bit because you'll notice that for Cleric Thief, if that switches on, it's a 2nd level Cleric and a 3rd level Thief. So the first couple are identical to the one above, right? You just make sure you're using, for die 1 and die 2, you're using 1 to 8 and 1 to 6. 1 to 8 for Cleric, 1 to 6 for Thief. This stays the same. You're adding the two variables, dividing by 2. These would stay the same. This would stay the same. You copied and pasted from the previous class, so all of this would stay the same. You just got to make sure you're using the right random range, 1 to 8, 1 to 6. All of this stays the same. And then you'd have to add that 3rd hit point dice for Thief only, right? This is no different from when the previous times we saw Thief. So we would do MC die 1 is going to be random 1 to 6. MC die 1 gets divided by 2. And then HP die 3 is set to MC die 1. Then you've got to make sure you update this. HP die 3 less than or equal to 0. Then HP die 3 is set to 1. And then this is similar to the classes above where you had to add 3 variables, right? So now you've got 1, 2, 3 variables being added up to get your HP die total. And then this doesn't change, right? You're still setting the HP die total to the CC1 HP. And then I think this is the last one, Mage Thief. I think so. So this goes, and then this is identical to this one, right? So Cleric Thief was level 2 and level 3. And then Mage Thief switches on level 2 and level 3. So the only thing here, if you copy and paste Cleric Thief and use it for Mage Thief and just change the conditional branch, then you wouldn't have to change this. You would only check to make sure these are in the right spot. So Mage is 1 to 4, Thief is 1 to 6. This would be the same. These would be the same. These would be the same. Again, make sure that you're using the right range, right, for 1 to 4, 1 to 6 for Mage and Cleric. This would be the same. These would be the same. These would be the same. And then this is identical to if you copied and pasted from a Cleric Thief, right? Whichever one was before this, because you're just making sure. Let's see, was it already? I think it was. So yeah, so if you copied and pasted from Cleric Thief, and you got down here to the level 3, right? This should all be identical to this. You wouldn't have to change anything. This would all just be copied and pasted, no changes necessary. And that finishes the CC1 box, if CC box 1 is on. So then, if you've done all that, right, if you've accommodated all that, then all you have to do is copy CC box 1, all of that, you copy that, paste it, and then you just have to make all the changes to the necessary switches and variables. So, for instance, CC box 2 instead of CC box 1. This would stay the same. All of these would stay the same except you're updating the variable to CC2 instead of CC1, right? So you have to update all of these variables, but these other things don't change. So update the variables, okay? Then this is the same. You're just repeating all of the classes. So you have to update CC2 level, right? You're still dealing with HP die 1 because this isn't character specific. This stays the same. This stays the same. HP die 2, that's the same. That's the same. This is the same. All this is the same except this one, CC die 2, CC2 HP, right? So you just have to scroll down and make sure that you are catching all of the variables that were used for CC1 and update them to CC2. Okay? So same thing with Paladin, CC2. All this is the same. All this is the same, right? There's no CCs in there anywhere. All that's the same. And then CC2 HP, right? Same thing with Rangers. CC2 level. All that's none change, no change, no change, no change, no change, no change, and then CC2 HP. Okay? Cleric. Okay, I'm just going to scroll through these so you can see that, change this, change this. Now you're down to Mage, change this, right? CC2. All the rest of it is just the same. You don't have to touch it. So this is actually pretty easy. And then CC2 HP. Thief, CC2. Don't have to change. No changes there, no changes there, no changes there. No changes there, and then CC2 HP. Fighter Cleric, CC2 MC level 1, CC2 MC level 2, right? So you got to update both of those. None of these get changed, none of these get changed, none of these, CC2 HP, right? So Fighter Mage, CC2 MC, CC2 MC, so you change those. Nope, no changes, no changes, no changes, CC2 HP. Okay, so I'm not going to keep going through these. I will just scroll through them, right? So we got Fighter Thief, Fighter Cleric, Fighter Mage Thief, Cleric Ranger, Cleric Mage, Cleric Thief, Mage Thief, and then you're down to CC box 3. Okay, so it literally is just copying and pasting and updating, right? So I'm not going to go through CC box 3 and CC box 4. Just like I said, you can see what needs to be changed. What I am going to do is scroll all the way down to make sure that there's nothing else. So we go down here. We're still going, still going, still going, and then it's the end of the event. Okay? So going back to the top, right? You first set your con modifier to 0, then you start right in with your CC box 1. And if you do all of those, if you make it all correct, then you can just copy and paste CC box 1 and then make all your necessary changes to CC box 2 and CC2, right? And you just have to go through all of them and make sure you catch changing all the CC1 variables and switches to CC2, and then changing them all to CC3, and then changing them all to CC4. Okay? All right. I'm going to end this one because that was long, and it takes a long time to create. It really does. The good thing is that the logic and reasoning should be good, I mean, I've tested it. It works. I was very careful with following the eye of the beholder manual and things like that. But this is the concept. Okay, so the next video will pick up with the portraits, scrolling through the portraits, and then selecting a portrait for the character. Those won't be terrible. Those actually won't be terribly hard events. And then we'll probably get into the final buttons. This is actually a very small event, setting the final buttons. And then some of these are pretty small. Modify is probably the one that involves a lot more, because when you're modifying, you have to use all of these common events. Okay, but anyway, so I'm going to stop there. That was HP determination. It's not really terrible. It's just a lot of accounting for every single class, at least the way I built it. Again, there may be an easier way to do it, but it's just the way I built it. And so you have to accommodate every single class, and you then have to copy and paste it, for essentially you have to create it and then copy and paste it 3 times and change it for the other boxes that you're potentially working with. Okay, all right. Well, I hope this is helpful. This is a lot, but again, if this is what you're interested in, if you're interested in making D&D style mechanics for RPG Maker MZ, this is one approach to it, and you can certainly do it. It is just a lot of work. Maybe there's plugins that do it better already, but D&D style games is not the typical RPG Maker game. So there may not be as many resources out there to natively do what you want to do if you're trying to do D&D style games. All right, well, again, hope this is helpful for folks. Don't know if I'll get another video up today. We'll see. This is the second one today. It's Sunday, and then of course we enter into the work week, so maybe a little bit before I get another video. We will have to see. But I wish you all the best of luck on your projects. Hope you're having a great new year. Happy gaming, happy game developing, and again, if you want to say hi, if you want to check in with me or something, not only can you leave comments on the videos here and give feedback and things, but you can also meet me over on the forums, rpgmakerweb.com forums. I have the same username, and you can always even private message me there if you wanna talk to me about something. Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much, folks. Again, hope you're having a great day, and I will talk to everybody later. Bye.